When God's servant speaks, the wise listen. Deuteronomy 18, verse 22.
Number 4, France. Laissez-passer. Qu'est-ce que c'est? C'est un bam-bam. France. France should not hatch her plan against this small country, that her eyes are open to step out of darkness into the shining light. God chose to allow me to put most of this way so that you may not understand until it happens. The one that has to come direct will be direct. But the one that has to come to confuse you until it happens will confuse you. That is it. France should not hatch her plan against this small country, that her eyes are open to step out of darkness into the shining light. Before France decides to hatch this plan, she should remember that the consequences might be too great for her to bear, because this small country is already drawing sympathy of others who are ready to back her up. We are praying for France. We are praying for France and this African country for peace to reign. It's like I'm giving you a clue.
On April the 22nd, 2025, Burkina Faso's military junta announced it had thwarted a major plot to overthrow Traoré, allegedly orchestrated from neighbouring Ivory Coast, a nation long accused by Traoré of harbouring his enemies. The plot, according to Security Minister Mahamadou Sana, involved ex-army officers and terrorist leaders who planned to storm the presidential palace on April the 16th, aiming to sow total chaos and place Burkina Faso under the supervision of an international organisation. But it was the words of General Michael Langley, head of US Africa Command, AFRICOM, that poured fuel on the fire. In a US Senate committee hearing earlier in April, Langley accused Traoré of misusing Burkina Faso's nationalised gold reserves to protect his junta at the expense of the Burkinabe people. This was no mere critique. It was a calculated slander, a dog whistle to Western powers itching to destabilise a leader who dares to challenge their hegemony. Langley's words were not just an attack on Traoré, they were an assault on Africa's right to self-determination. The response was swift and ferocious. On April the 30th, Ouagadougou's Place de la Révolution became a sea of defiance. Protesters waved Burkina Faso's green, red and yellow flag alongside Russia's, a nod to the junta's pivot away from France and toward new alliances. Banners bore General Langley's image, defaced with the word slave scrawled in red, a stinging rebuke of his perceived servitude to imperialist agendas.
Supporters of Burkina Faso's military leader have called for a mass rally in support of the junta after the government said it had foiled an attempted coup and accused America and France of influencing the country's politics. Since Traoré came to power, the military government has cracked down on dissent, kidnappings and arbitrary arrests of both civilian critics and army personnel accused of plotting coups, which have increased. Here is our cover report.
France and the United States government needs to back off from any attempt to remove Captain Traoré from office. Forget about your plans. He's our own. He is doing exactly what the people of Burkina Faso and many other African countries wish their leaders were doing for them.
Comrade, are you right to fight for IBRAHIM TRAORE?
In a shocking and unexpected move to support Captain IBRAHIM Traoré, On Wednesday, the continent and its diaspora roared in unison, their voices echoing from the dusty streets of Ouagadougou to the urban sprawls of Accra, Monrovia, and far beyond the shores of the motherland. Thousands, no, millions of Africans, united under the banner of sovereignty and defiance, took to the streets in what can only be described as the most seismic display of solidarity in recent history. Their chant, "Long live Captain Ibrahim Traoré." Their demand, "Hands off Burkina Faso, hands off Africa." This was not just a protest. This was a declaration of war against imperialism, neo-colonialism, and the predatory forces that have bled Africa dry for centuries. From Burkina Faso's Place de la Revolution to the vibrant gatherings in Ghana, Liberia, and the diaspora hubs of London, Paris, and New York, Africans stood shoulder to shoulder, their fists raised, their hearts ablaze with a singular message. If you want to kill Captain Ibrahim Traoré, you will have to kill us first.
France should not hatch her plan against this small country that her eyes are open to step out of darkness into the shining light. Before France decides to hatch this plan, she should remember that the consequences might be too great for her to bear, because this small country is already drawing sympathy of others who are ready to back her up.
Our next story is about Emmanuel Macron. The French president faces trouble from all sides. The war in Ukraine has hammered Europe. Macron's dreams of leading the continent lie in tatters. His grip on domestic power has weakened because of the poorly thought out election that he conducted last year. And farmers are protesting all over France. Everywhere you look, there's chaos. You would think it couldn't get any worse. But somehow, Macron has managed to create even more trouble for himself. The French president did it again yesterday, another classic foot-in-the-mouth moment where he casually insulted a bunch of African nations. Take a look.
One part was our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay. It'll come in time. I'm in a good position to know that ingratitude is a disease that cannot be transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African governments who have not had the courage, in the eyes of their public opinion, to bear it. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
That was Macron giving a grand foreign policy speech, addressing a gathering of French ambassadors and chalking out the way ahead this year. Somehow, Macron thought that this was the right time to pick a new fight with people who already don't seem to like him very much, the people of Africa. You know that France has been on the back foot in Africa over the past few years. It had military bases all over the continent, mostly in its former colonies in West and Central Africa. French troops have been squatting there for decades, ostensibly to provide security cover. French colonies like Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, right under the noses of the French troops stationed there. This instability led to multiple military coups in West Africa, in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. And the military juntas promptly decided to switch partners. They kicked France out and chose to work with Russia instead. They believed that the Russians would be more effective against the terrorists. The decision had a knock-on effect. Anti-France sentiment started spreading to other countries hosting French troops like Chad, Senegal, and most recently the Ivory Coast. This is a massive failure for France, a moment of shame. But Macron does not see it that way. He says Paris is not on the back foot. Instead, he blames the African nations. Macron called them, and I'm quoting, ungrateful. And then he said, and let me quote again, none of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region. This is the French president, the leader of a former colonial power, talking about countries that won their independence from France. Macron says the French army is responsible for their sovereignty. How tone-deaf can you be? If anything, the African countries would have been sovereign sooner if not for the French army. Macron's mental gymnastics are truly world-class, but obviously the African nations were not impressed. Chad and Senegal have called him out. Chad's foreign minister issued a statement. He said Macron holds, and I'm quoting again, a contemptuous attitude towards Africa and Africans. He added that the French presence in Chad has often been limited to its own strategic interests without any real lasting impact for the development of the Chadian people. And then he reminded Macron about how Africans had helped France, especially during the 2 world wars. That was Chad's rebuke. Senegal's was even sharper. Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko put up this post on social media. He counters Macron's claims, saying that France helped destabilize countries like Libya, which contributed to the Sahel security crisis. And then Sonko issued a parting shot. Let me quote again. This is what he said. This is finally the place to remind President Macron that if African soldiers, sometimes forcibly mobilized, mistreated and ultimately betrayed, had not deployed during the Second World War to defend France, it would perhaps still be Germany today.
For a very long time, the French colonies in Africa, 14 of them, in fact, till date, don't have their own Ministry of Finance. They always have to keep their monies in the Ministry of Finance in France. So if Burkina Faso wants to buy anything from Ghana, they would have to write to the Finance Ministry in France for them to release the funds to Burkina Faso. Where does this make sense?
Of all the resources Burkina Faso have, they've not been able to build even more than 5,000 kilometers of road. Today, as we are speaking, when our politicians go around building first coach, second coach roads, he is building asphalted overland roads. How many years? And today, the person that is building roads, the person that is giving hope to the people, we have some people coming from nowhere to tell them that we are ready to give you life. In fact, if they want to give life, they should go to Congo, they should go to South Sudan, they should go there, and the mess they caused there, they should go and put it together, take it back to their country. Enough is enough. We are ready to rise up and say enough is enough. It is now. They can never keep us in the fear or the shackles of imperialism. No way. We are ready to detach ourselves and say enough is enough.
It's a black African star that has risen. And it is important for all Africans to unite and protect that star. Like in Nkrumah, they tried to overthrow Nkrumah. They did a lot of things against Sankara and Co. We should not allow that to happen to Traore. Irrespective of our political differences and geological locations, all blacks must work. All blacks must stand up and speak for Traore.
And this is the time that African youth need to read through the lines and see and realize the truth. The same way they did to Nkrumah, they use the same people. And this is a warning that goes to all African leaders, that they sit back and allow themselves to be used by the imperialists. Anytime there has been any elimination of any African good leader,
they use black people.
Great.
The Ghanaian youths who have been following the story of Burkina Faso online have decided that this day be an international black gathering day in solidarity of IBRAHIM Traoore, the president of Burkina Faso. We're here because we know you're doing the right thing. We're here because we know you are not bowing to any foreign influence. We're here because we know you are fighting for the rights of blacks in general, especially the Burkinabes. Every youth you see here wishes that his leader or her leader have the footsteps of yours.
Use our own people like against us.
Just as they are doing right now.
In Ivory Coast. For now, we are sending a strong warning to the Ivory Coast leader, the president of Ivory Coast. If you are a brother and you sit down with our enemy, you become our enemy. Simple. Our brother again. Warning to them. Warning to them. And we are sending a strong warning to the president of Ghana to send a strong warning as far as diplomacy is concerned to the president and the consulate of Ghana for Ivory Coast, that enough is enough. We are never going to sit down and allow this to happen again. If we believe in African unification, if we celebrate Setmat, which is our independence, that Nkrumah actually linked it to the total liberation of Africa, we are saying today that as he is a president, he should respect that quote of Nkrumah and also believe in the vision of Nkrumah by sending a message to the Ivorian president that, my brother, you are stepping on the toes of the lion. Don't do this as a brother, because if you do, we are never going to sit back and watch you. If we can't get hold of you, you have your family. Start coming after them. Tell them we are coming.
If we sell a brother, the buyer will never
As it was simple, the influential figure whose identity has never been publicly revealed arrived in Burkina Faso. He deliberately cultivated relationships with soldiers in Traore's inner security circle. If you could help me eliminate IBRAHIM Traore, he told them, I'm going to pay you over $5 million.
When God's servant speaks, the wise listen. Deuteronomy 18, verse 22.